So one thing that we know is the Browns currently have the second overall pick. ESPN's Field Yates, Mel Kiper Jr. doing their second mock draft, and the way they do it is in this instance, Mel Kiper drafted first for the Titans, Field Yates second for the Browns. This is who Field Yates took with number 2 overall for the Browns.
The Cleveland Browns take Travis Hunter, the teammate of Shedeur Sanders. So not Shedeur Sanders, and the Browns obviously are a team that will do something at quarterback this offseason, as at the time of this conversation, Mel, all we know about Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, you could argue needs to be replaced just based off of his performance, suffered a setback of some sort with his Achilles, does not sound good. We don't know when we'll see him next, but I think Cleveland is more likely to explore the veteran quarterback market somehow in free agency than attack quarterback with the second overall pick. Travis Hunter would fill a need for every single team because he plays both ways, but for a Browns team that picked off a total of 4 passes this year, if you wanted to make him a full-time corner opposite of Denzel Ward and play him at wide receiver as well, to me that would be a totally justified value for that number 2 overall pick in the draft. He's the number 1 player on my board. He's the number 1 player on your board, Mel. And I thought about this more and more as I watch more and more of his wide receiver tape. I could make a case that if all Travis Hunter did was play wide receiver, he'd still be the best player in the draft.
All right, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier, Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, when you look at that, so Mel Kiper drafted Cam Ward number 1 overall for the Titans. Field Yates came back and instead of drafting Shedeur Sanders, took Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter.
When you look at that, I don't hate that. If relative to Sanders or Ward, you got to be sold on whomever you take at that spot. If you're taking them at number 2, you got to be pretty darn certain that they're going to be your quarterback for the next 8-10 years.
Yeah, you take somebody at quarterback at number 2, you got to make sure that's the guy, right? Like, you got to be sure that you think that that's the guy. If you're looking at it and you're like, hey, I think Sanders, his ceiling is Geno Smith, you can't take that guy at number 2, right? Like, that's not a good enough ceiling for it to be worth that pick, because at the end of the day, Geno Smith not really a consistent tier 2, tier 1 quarterback. So yeah, if you don't believe or feel that way about a quarterback in this year's draft class, you just gotta go with the best player available. And again, I say this a lot. If the best player available in that, if factored into that isn't a quarterback, then you just go with whoever you feel like is best. So we'll see who the Browns go with there. There's a lot of defensive players that I think are going to be in the conversation for that. Travis Hunter is definitely in that conversation. One of the most talented athletes we've seen come out of college football in a very long time. Question with him is durability. And, you know, sometimes in NFL, being super versatile ends up being a bad thing for you in the long run, right? The guys that we came in that have been these slash guys, Kadarius Toney, Isaiah Simmons in recent years, haven't really worked out. You can even go back to somebody like Reggie Bush, who was seen as this all-encompassing, you could do everything with him guy. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of decisions to be made for the Browns. If they're going to pass on quarterback, they got to be 100% sure, so I expect them to do all their due diligence this offseason. But if they don't do that and come away thinking, hey, this guy's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL or has a chance to be that, then you got to stay away from him at number 2.
The other thing I would say is, even if you come away and don't think they are the guy you're going to pick, you got to sell what you see as being the best thing that you've ever seen in a quarterback, because somebody might get really crazy and give you a number 1, a number 2, and to move down 2-3 spots. And if that happens, you take that and run if you don't have a high enough grade on either of these quarterbacks.
It's the ultimate catch-22, right? I talk about this with the J.J. McCarthy thing. When people talk about trading for J.J. McCarthy, I'm like, if the price is good for him, then that's a alarm, because like it shouldn't be good. This guy was drafted 8th overall. Why is the price so nice on him? But if the price is crazy on him, then you don't want to do it, because like that's too crazy of a price for an unproven player. Same thing applies here. If you want somebody to trade up to number 2, but you're like super eager to do it, that's going to make them be doubtful about like, hey, what are we really trading up for unless they're like super head first? Now, if the Raiders decide to hire like Deion Sanders to run the organization, and then like obviously Deion gonna want to get his son, right? But other than that, you got to play the game here. So yeah, you're going to hear that the Browns are interested in quarterback, and they're going to do things that make it seem like they're interested in quarterback because they should make sure if they're going to pass on quarterback that they're 100% okay with doing that, right? And if that's the case, then they'll make that move and move on. If they don't think that there's a quarterback worth passing on, they'll take a quarterback.